First of all, I think if you have an interest in innovation and entrepreneurship as a medical student, this is going to be the perfect panel for you. Based off of conversations I've had with friends and faculty members, there's a bunch of concerns that come up, particularly for medical students that want to go and take this direction with their careers that I think this panel can uniquely address. But even if you're not, I wanted to bring up just a couple of quick slides, a couple of quick facts I think all medical students should keep in mind. They're a little sobering. First, we are all the most competitive medical students ever. So medical school gets more and more competitive every year. So there's 12,000 more medical students that applied last year than 10 years ago. The acceptance rate has dropped 12% over the past 10 years as well. So we're among one of the most selective collection of classes ever. So I think we should give ourselves a pat on the back for that.
Don't get that go to your head.
But at the same time, general internists now get paid 12% less than they did 20 years ago. And the average indebtedness for every student is more than doubled. So this is something to keep in mind. It's not meant to scare you, but it's meant to keep an open mind going forward and trying to explore different skill sets that you can use in your career so that you have opportunities. I think especially here at Sinai, we have collections of students with very unique skill sets. I know I have a lot of classmates of mine that have consulting experience, finance experience. Some have done research for more than 2 years in a lab and have enough publications that probably merits a master's. Some even have existing degrees, such as PhDs or MBAs. And with the advent of the FlexMed program that allows sophomores to apply directly into Sinai and get in, and some of them have backgrounds as varied as the quantitative sciences or the humanities, I think this is, I think trying to think about the bigger picture and the other ways that you can augment your education are really important. So without any further ado, I'd like to ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll get started. Howard, do you mind just introducing yourself real quick?
Sure. My name's Howard Levin, a cardiologist or engineer turned cardiologist turned startup guy, and have done a number of companies and enjoy running an elective here on innovation.
I'm Josh Gutman. I'm Josh Gutman. I'm an emergency physician here, and I'm the fellow in point-of-care ultrasound.
Hi, I'm Milena Adamian, cardiologist turned investor via a series of steps, including medical director at Boston Scientific and analyst on Wall Street. Running to, just in case you're wondering what Angel Life Sciences Angel Network is, it's an investment vehicle. It's an angel group that invests in early stage companies. And there's also a fund which is much bigger. It's a venture fund that we run, where we also invest in healthcare technologies and medical devices.
I'm a boarding gastroenterologist. I also direct a Sinai App Lab. We have a 10-people team. We make apps for patient engagement, physician engagement, and it's a resource for Mount Sinai in general.
I'm Dr. Michael Marin. I'm the chairman of the Department of Surgery of your medical school, and I'm an investor in really smart medical students who want to get ahead.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Right guy.
I'd like everyone to maybe comment, just to kick things off, on if there are any moments during your medical education where you had some hints that you might be where you are today, experiences that you had that might have led to your careers as they are now.
All right, I'll start. I think that lots of what happens to you in your life predetermines what happens later on. The problem with that is that whatever it was, it already started when you were in fifth or sixth grade, so there's not a lot you can change. You're already on a path. Whether you're ambitious and driving and entrepreneurial, it's not something you're going to suddenly learn today as you're in medical school. It's a product of what you've learned and has been built into yourselves as younger people. I would say that my own interest in what I do today is very much driven by things that happened to me in high school, college. An interest in research and investigation didn't start later on, it started very early. So most likely that you're sitting in this room means that you're probably the same way.
I as I said, I started out as sort of an engineer, and when I went to Mount Sinai School of Medicine and graduated before you guys were born, which is the sad part about this, it it was really fun. You went on the floors and went on rounds with really outstanding clinicians, and you really got the opportunity to, see patient care. But what you also saw was, what you couldn't do. And then, you have I sort of applied my engineering background to try and fix the things that couldn't be done. And that's really, one type of innovation. But I agree with Dr. Marin. It doesn't have to be engineering. It could be apps. It could be public health. It could be, anything. Innovation comes in many shapes and forms and sizes. It's not all devices, not all drugs, or not all whatever. It's what you bring to it.
I would say that, like everything else, it has genetic and environmental component to it. So genetic part is exactly what Dr. Marino was talking about. The environmental component is that, it really depends on where you're building your medical career. And to be honest, I personally started as a cardiologist, as a physician. I really wanted to be a doctor. I never in 1,000 years that the idea of me becoming an investor would cross my mind, just because it wasn't there. You're a physician. You're saving lives. You're loving it. And then, but the environmental part of it was that I happened to be, I always said I was very lucky to be trained by best of the best in interventional cardiology. And so through exposure to people, my mentors in the cath lab, and Marty, right? I was with Dr. Colombo and then with Jeff and Marty, yeah. And so, I mean, you're basically exposed to tremendous amount of startups on one hand, big companies such as Johnson & Johnson's and Medtronics of this world on the other hand. And so all of a sudden you're just in the middle of this whole happening scene. At some point, as I usually say, the adrenaline of getting plugged in and working with the new companies definitely took over, and that's why I decided to turn into, first left to Boston Scientific, and then so every single step in my personal career wasn't because I didn't like what I was doing before, because you learn and you continue and you want to learn more. So medical director, this is cool, but there is a world of venture capital. Oh, and this is how it goes.
Obviously, it's a genetic defect.
Yeah.
But
it's called AD&D.
Yeah, that's right. No, but one of the things is you have to know what you want to do. And in a previous panel, Dr. Marin was saying, you can't be all things to everything. You can't be a full-time clinician and be, run an NIH-funded lab where, you're the primary person responsible for bringing the money in the lab chief, et cetera. And, I grew up, academic, right down the line, never thought I was going to do anything except academics until you get exposed to something different. And you see what the other side is. But until you get and see what the other side is, you have no idea it exists. And you need to go out and see what's available to see if it fits you. And this innovation program and other things at SANA are different than a lot of other institutions that don't have this opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree. I think exposure is really critical, and it can happen at any stage. I was not as lucky as being born innovator in any way. I told you I have a very boring life. I just went to medical school, not exposed to any technology startups. I was in India. Came here, did my residency, and the first year of residency, I opened Up to Date because there was lung transplantation I never knew how to manage. And I said, wow. Up to Date is just a database. There's a data behind it, and then you can publish it. And that somehow, there's a Steve Jobs or someone has a saying, if human mind is like elastic, if you stretch it, it never regains the same shape. Once a great idea comes to you or great things that stretches your imagination, that just totally distracted me in a way that I went towards technology route. And I was not planned to be that, and that happened at residency. And I didn't do any technology work beforehand. And now 90% of work is technology. So I think that exposure at any stage is key. And then it will take, if you are in that DNA and you are thinking about it, it will take you off completely, no matter at what stage of your career you are.
For myself, I'm just more recently out of training, and I kind of fell into industry. from the point-of-care ultrasound world is during residency I got interested in ultrasound at the point of care, at the bedside, in order to make me a better clinician and better patient care. And then once I got more interested in that, doing that a lot more, industry kind of came to me when you have all these companies who are interested in innovating and creating new machines, making them smaller, more portable, more powerful, better. And so then I sort of got into working with industry, or starting now, to try to create sort of better tools for clinicians to use to make patient care better.
So it sounds like, a lot of this interest in innovation, entrepreneurship happen, or developing technologies kind of happen once our panelists started to begin their training. Looking back in just a couple of sentences or less, was there anything formal in your medical education training, such as an interest group or maybe an internship that was available that might have provided, looking back in retrospect, a flashpoint that might have led to some aspects of your career now?
Not back in the day, as they say. If you were thinking about industry when we were going through school, you were ostracized. They thought you were, sort of not going after academics, and you went to the dark side or something. And now there are a lot of opportunities to be able to explore that. So.
I think we should separate entrepreneurship from industry. The idea that being an entrepreneur means something to do with industry is sending the wrong tone. Being an entrepreneur is being creative. It's coming up with ideas, pursuing those ideas, and making them successful, however you do it. Whether you do it in a research lab, whether you do it in your home, in your garage, it's taking an idea which is novel, and not just having the idea and saying, I have an idea, but operationalizing the idea and making it successful. It has nothing to do, industry and companies and all this stuff is a secondary phenomena. The idea is really the first thing for a physician.
No, and I think Dr. Maron is exactly right. One of the things you got to remember is that everything you learn about innovation or entrepreneurship can go for anything you want to do. Whether you're trying to tell your attending on rounds, when you're presenting a patient, you're selling it, right? You're trying to explain to that attending or resident why you believe that this patient has this disease and should be treated in this way. When you're writing an NIH grant, you're trying to sell the study panel on that this is a very important thing to do and you should give me money to do this. When if you work in industry or in a startup, that you're trying to sell the venture capitalists that this is a very important thing, therefore you should give us money. They're all the same things. It's just in different ways. You have to learn how to define what your deliverables are, how to define and stay on a timeline and a budget. Everything all comes out the same.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'd be really curious about, and speaking from my experience, first 2 years of medical school, you learn a whole ton about anatomy, pathology, physiology, and then it actually took a course that was an elective with Dr. Rich called The Business and Law of Medicine, where I actually began to understand that you can have the best idea in the world, but it may actually go nowhere because you can't get reimbursement. Nobody's ever going to do the study with it. So there's this whole higher level of thinking that caught me off guard, and really if I hadn't taken that elective class, I never even would have thought of it to begin with. And I assume that a lot of you probably have had that moment, and if you do, maybe you can comment on it when you finally realize there was this bigger layer to medicine to fight through.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not the level of medicine to fight through. It's the way to open up your own horizon, basically. Because no matter how great your idea is, we're seeing a lot of people with a lot of ideas. And it's not the idea that we're going to invest into. We're going to invest in team, in your team, in the team of people who are going to execute on that ideas. Ideas are cheap. There are a lot of them. The innovation factor here is not just to come up with some spectacular idea or technology, but also how to make it through to commercialize it. How do you bring it to the market? Does anyone need that? And so, I mean, going back to my personal experience, again, when you're a physician, you tend to get excited about a lot of things that for industry doesn't matter. And industry is your ultimate consumer, basically, consumer of your technology, of your goods, unless you're planning to grow this company at enormous pace and make it big. So it's your, in a way, it's your feedback mechanism, if you will. But as a physician, you inherently, I mean, I can tell you, because we're all kind of here on the same page, right? As a physician, you're not trained to look at things differently. You always think you're always right. And all of those who are not physicians in your group, they probably have no idea what they're talking about, because I'm a physician, I'm always right. So one of the first things that is being taken, you have to take care of is that part. Just start listening and acting as a team of people trying to do something together versus just, I just think this is how it's supposed to be. So because each of you brings spectacular experience and very special skill set into the whole equation. I always come up with example of, I mean, one of my favorite groups is Stanford Biodesign. That has, and I apologize if, or I don't know if Mount Sinai has anything like that, any similar function, but
Ours is better.
I'm sure you. But putting together a team of 3 that includes a physician, an engineer, and a business person is a brilliant idea. It's simple, but yet it's brilliant because all of a sudden you have 3 parts interacting, and without all 3, you can't really get far along with your idea only.
This is the exciting part, I think, of being at Sinai now, is that we actually are diversifying. A lot of my classmates are going to business school between their 3rd and 4th years, or getting further education. So I think now is as good a time as ever to take advantage of the diversity of backgrounds.
Right. So Brett, in my medical school, there was nothing like that. But I think exposure is key. Mm-hmm. And I think for you, the spark was that elective that you took. And I think we have to, even though we have programs, including 4D programs, there can be more of them. And at any stage, the mind may open up and say, okay, my God, this is really valuable that I can create. And then many of the people are actually self-directing. They will direct themselves. So I actually learned most of entrepreneurship from Audacity, which is our MOOCs, massive online courses. I travel from New Jersey. I actually download them, and I watch all their pitch and presentations. And
Driving.
Huh?
Yeah.
While he's driving.
Well, no, it's already, so there's a YouTube downloader. You download it, it's already in your computer, and you just open the Mac, it's playing while I do a 45 minutes drive. In fact, 45 minutes 2 ways, right? So 1.5 hours, I'm just learning from Stanford, MIT, and all these MOOCs courses, Audacity. And I think so, it's not a barrier. You don't have to be in Sinai per se and have everything at Sinai. Mm-hmm. You can actually attend all these courses online. Steve Blank has one of the best YouTube videos out there for free. So I think your mind has to just grow and know that this is the thing that you're interested in, and grow, and then you will find a way. But the exposure is key.
But I mean, what you're bringing up is what Dr. Maharan had said on here, whether it was here or the previous panel. But the truth is that you either want to really do it or it doesn't matter. You have to personally want to go do it. And, there will be a lot of roadblocks in your way, but there are a lot of opportunities for you to get around those roadblocks, sometimes in very simple manners, or just, finding the right person to talk to, this or that. But nothing's going to come to you. You can get exposed to stuff, but once you're exposed, it's totally up to you. You have to personally want to do it. When we hire, we just take the smartest person who is, the hardest working, with a good personality, right? It doesn't really matter, they have to have some
What's
skills.
left? Smart, good looks. You didn't bring in their appearance, but
Well, no. We absolutely, having not lost the weight I want to, I have classically stayed away from the good looks part. But I mean, really, you want somebody who's going to work really, really hard. And, you're right. The thing is, hard work beats intelligence a significant amount of the time. But if you're intelligent and you work hard, it's a great combination. But if you have a bad personality, okay, smarts and hard work doesn't get you diddly. So
problem is, Who's smart? How do you know who's smart? You can always tell who works hard. That's a parameter that's very easy to decipher. But who's smart? I mean, who you think is smart may be different than what Milena thinks is smart.
And it's all
And it depends
situational.
on what you're doing. But hard works, if you're out there kicking butt, it's everyone's seeing it.
Yep.
Right. There's also another interesting thing. What comes with the age and experience, as
But
much
being
as we don't,
21,
as much as we don't
better.
like to admit that, but there's a thing called gut, right? And the gut part of it is exactly comes out when you. So first of all, definition of gut is actually, I think it's an experience plus overlaid with some experience, and some experience and experience again, but mostly with some of the, feeling and knowledge and experience, okay? So, but the truth is that you look at the entrepreneur and there's something about it, it's either clicks right away, you go like, these are the guys, so we invested really early. Most of the companies that we invested at the seed stage, right? Most of them, out of 9 that we invested in the last 3 years, we're being very selective. 5 raised A rounds from, and some of them raised B rounds from Sequoia Capital, from Khosla, from DFJ, from Lightspeed Ventures, et cetera, et cetera. So why is that? You're looking at the person, you're looking at the team, and you see this like, weird fire in their eyes, but they also know what they're doing, obviously. They're hard workers. But there is something about that they can't discount. Otherwise, you see a lot, and then there's another team that comes, and they say everything right, and they do everything right, but there's something.
They just don't have the passion. They just don't have the drive.
No, exactly. And
You know?
that's about, and you can't explain it. I mean, most of the time you can rationalize it, right? Then you rationalize your gut, basically feeling, saying, it doesn't work, the market is not
So,
there.
Dr. Marin, how do you pick your resonance?
By their looks.
And the
would
orange
be-
jacket.
Right, right.
So, so if you come back to the biodesign principle, I think one of the things they say is entrepreneurship can be taught. And I think that's a very, and then I want to just have a discussion on that as well. While we do know people sometimes have to be in different mind, but if you're exposed the right way and there's certain principles, entrepreneurship can be taught. And that's a guiding philosophy for the biodesign principle. And they say, if you're exposed to do something new, to create a value, whether it's patients or something of that nature, or physician productivity, there's rules that you go out of your field. You have to go out of your field because that's where the ideas come from. And the best way to go out of the field is not to read books about MBA or marketing, to actually talk with the people who are in different fields. And if you put an engineer, a business development person, and a physician together, and you give a need or a problem, okay, they will come to 10,000 problems and they will find 10 which may be suitable to. So there's a principle they go through, and I think that's valuable for you. The very fact that you are here listening, I would say most of you have it in to become an entrepreneur and to do technology. You get exposure in different way, and then you go through training, whether it's informal training through MOOC or something, but you are already on the way. And you're already intelligent based on the statistics we learned about, 12% people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you've already self-selected yourselves out to a large degree by the
Right.
fact you're here, right? If you weren't interested and didn't have the drive to do it, you probably wouldn't be here. The question then is, can you find something you're passionate about that you're going to run through the wall to make succeed no matter what?
I disagree. I think half of them are here because there was free booze outside, and
But did you
But
look
they
at
could
the
have gone
wine?
out already.
What kind of
They
wine
stayed
was
somehow.
this? Was this New York wine, California wine?
I don't know. It's probably not
Is
from California.
bad or good,
That's reserved for Stanford Biodesign.
That's right.
beyond education and training and work you're doing, the motivation comes from why you're interested in inventing. Either you're intrinsically interested in doing something different and distinguishing yourself. You're interested in entrepreneurship because you want to make money because you have debt. You want to buy a fancy house on the beach in East Hampton. You have a motivation to do it. The rest you can discover and find out. The mentors, the education, the MBA, all that stuff you could acquire in a heartbeat. You first have to have the reason behind why you're interested in doing something different and being creative. And everyone here, I bet, has a reason. You don't want to talk about it. Maybe you're embarrassed about it. Maybe you have a gambling habit. You don't want anybody to know. You have a reason to want to get involved in an entrepreneurial pursuit and be creative, inventive, and do something different. You want to distinguish yourself. And that's the most important feature. Everything else is secondary, in my opinion.
And then it's finding that thing that you're going to be passionate about and get excited about. You really have to find that thing that's going to motivate you, that when everybody says no, you can't do it, you're going to say yes and you're going to keep going. Because you want to find that thing that when you're really, really frustrated, and you will get frustrated, keeps you going, that you're not going to just give it up. That's really important.
But
It will find you, in my opinion. It'll find
But you
you.
also have to be you can't be afraid to screw up or look bad.
Can I be a little more pessimistic? I think a lot of you have already established
Okay,
yourself.
you're ugly.
You guys, you guys have already
Sorry.
been successful, and it's easy to look back and say, hey, keep having that passion, keep having that motivation. Maybe in addition to being pessimistic, I like to be realistic. What were the doubts? I mean, what were the tough decisions that you had to make where you had to sacrifice either
Not
more?
having a salary.
Not having a salary.
That was for me, I was stupid on my part. I should have done more part-time moonlighting or something to have a thing. But, I decided, no, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start up a company. And it just showed a total lack of having any idea what it meant to start up a company. And, it ended up, I ended up taking money and going back to work when my wife punched me in the stomach. Because she was 6 months without money, and, so I think it's good to get an exposure and have some idea of what it is you're going into, no matter what the particular field or modality is.
Right. Test the waters first.
Because grass is always greener on the other side. You say, I can write an app, $10,000, I'm on the market, I'm selling on, App Store and iTunes. Well, if you can do that for $10,000 and in a month, there are other people that are going to do it for $10,000 and in a month. But if you do a better one and then you win. Alternatively, you can do something long-term, have a very protectable thing, whatever, but it's 10 years down the line. So pays your money, takes your chances. There's no right answer.
Yeah, pessimism doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, it doesn't matter. Don't exercise it. Just forget about it. My question, how many people in this audience actually have an idea or thinking about doing something? Well, I see quite a few.
Stop now. Save yourselves.
This is great. So, forget the pessimism part. Just go.
Maybe not pessimism,
to the goal and
but
just
realism.
go there.
There's a sacrifice that you have to make.
Of course you have to make. You always
And
have
I'd like
to
to
make
hear about what the sacrifices are.
lack of sleep.
Okay.
That's the first and biggest sacrifice.
Sleep is a sign of weakness.
Well, so again, then you look really energized after sleeping for 3 hours. I mean, in my entire career, no matter what I've done, whatever you're a physician, I was, I thought when I was going to industry, by the way, I thought these old people from Boston Scientific and Medtronic, they always look so good. They always go and have long lunches. So little I knew that medical director doesn't have that life, actually. Medical director, you do exactly what you were doing. Same thing that happened on the equity side when I was an equity analyst. So you wake up at 5 because you have quarterly reporting call starting at 7 or whatever, 8. So lack of sleep is one of the things that you have to get,
See, but
get
Dr.
through.
Marin has done 3 cases by 8.
Yeah. So
At least.
and then so you don't sleep either, I guess, right?
Sleep enough.
Do you do something?
This youthful look comes
Rejuvenation?
with.
Right. That's all natural.
Genetics.
Genetic.
So I never sacrificed on my sleep. I think that's the most precious thing which I really value, and I'll protect it at any cost. Nothing is more worth than it. And I would submit to you, you can do anything that you want while sleeping 7 hours a day. You can absolutely do anything. So I think my biggest thing was failing again and again while I was not used to failing in medical world. The apps I made did not get sold. I actually have to become a marketing person, and I was never been in a position when I had to sell anything. And that was very hard on me, and I felt I was not good. And this is in spite of the fact that your medical career is good, and now you're failing, and you say, oh my God, I don't have it in me. Like, this person comes out of the boat, 12th, whatever grade, and they can sell, and you can't sell it. Maybe you're not made for it. And it's easier said when you look at to say, hey, don't doubt yourself, but the fact is doubts come. And in the doubts, when you are at low, then your wife comes to you and say, I don't understand what you do. And you
Get another wife.
well, the mother also says the same thing. They can't say what I'm doing, right? Right? So I think,
no idea what I'm doing.
right, so for everyone, we go through dark moments. And those may be different for us. And we may be, the more successful we are as a physician, the tougher it is, because we always have an alternative backup plan. And I think if you really love yourself, you still have to find a way. And I think these days, much more than before, you do not have to leave your primary job and immediately go into it. You can test the waters and kind of build your stamina, build your kind of, what do they call it, that you can take anything, resilience, build your resilience, and then slowly it will evolve. And I think the reason what you're doing, that becomes subsuming. Everything else becomes secondary at a certain stage. And then the more challenge you face, it's like a marathon, the more you want to fight.
So I'm going to disagree with him. I don't believe in testing the waters. Do or don't do it. Don't say, I'll test the waters and I'll see what happens. If you decide you're going to do it and make it work. And whether you do it at the same time as you're doing a job or you leave like he described and start a company separately, don't test the waters. You're wasting your time, in my opinion. Either say you're going to go do something and do whatever it takes to make it successful, rhyme or reason you don't stop, or continue to go on a different path.
I will just clarify a little bit. Testing water doesn't mean that you test the idea, or, testing the water means...
He's waffling now.
No,
you
no,
see
no.
it?
The ideas evolve. There is no great idea that comes with the moment and you just build on it. The ideas keep on evolving. And if you don't give yourself time to evolve the idea, then you're not really making best use of the idea. Things evolve. So that's what I mean. You have to see your situation and the loans you have to pay and other things. You have to be brave, yes. But if you're not sure, you start doing something. You have to commit to doing something. That's what you learn and then you grow. But not everyone can leave the job. Even at this day, I will not leave my job because I love my job. Right? So I will not go to industry at all.
Yeah, but what you're saying, so what I think the combination of what people are saying is that you have to set your expectations, okay? Not everybody in this room is going to make $10 trillion, okay, from your idea. Because your idea may be to be the best you can, to innovate or be an entrepreneur in academic research. You can be an innovator or entrepreneur in a startup. You could be innovator or entrepreneur clinically, right? Better delivery of healthcare, whatever it is, so, new procedure, etc. Some of them come with higher compensation than others. Compensation is one thing you have to take into account for your gambling habit, or, you have to say, it's not really a net zero game, but there's some balance between being able to do what you want to do in the environment you want to do it and are passionate about, and the compensation that maximum compensation you can possibly get for it. That's just a fact of life. So what I generally find is the more passionate people, the harder they work, the more they actually make, simply because they push through all the walls and they become the top at whatever they do, and the top at whatever you do does well.
I think that's spot on. It's not about what you make or earn. It's about being successful at it. And trust me, you can be 1,000 times more gratified and enjoy yourself and your career if you invent something that is a home run and everyone is using it and it changes the course of lives and you don't make a dime out of it, or you make an insignificant amount, versus doing something where you make a lot more, which still won't be a ton, and you don't really make a contribution. Making a difference is really what it's about, and that's what being a physician is about too, making a difference.
And I would like to dovetail actually into that, because we see a lot of physicians right now transition into investment and industry, et cetera. The true value of a physician, of an MD next to your name, is just a MD next to your name. It's actually the fact that you practiced and you know what you're doing. Because there are a lot of graduates that just dreaming. I'm asked so many times, what do you do? How do you become? How do you convert into an investor? I'm like, listen, if I didn't know what I knew by now, I wouldn't do invest. This shouldn't be your first job. This should be your last job. What I'm saying is that actually practicing and seeing patients and acquiring building your knowledge as a physician, as a clinician, helps a lot in whatever you're going to do, because obviously you're not going to, unlikely that you're going to come up with the idea of a spaceship or something else, or Tesla car. It's going to be something about one of those disease states or conditions that need to be addressed, and something that you're seeing and you found or thought about improving it. So your clinical experience is incredibly important. So one advice would be continue to practice until you really realize that, okay, I know now enough, and I see myself doing that, company that I'm ready to live it.
Yeah, and I'd like to kind of build on some of the comments here and ask more specifically what fields, and I think there's going to be, maybe some debate or disagreement, what fields you think are most ripe or would be the best fields of training to go into to then be prepared to be an innovator or an entrepreneur and be able to contribute to industry.
Let me state the question slightly differently. In my, you can go into absolutely any field that you really want to do, that you're passionate about, and are going to be the best in that field. Whether you make a lot of money or not is in some part dependent on that. Like, if you go into cardiology and there are, 10 potential large acquirer companies, that's a higher chance of having an idea that you came up with, whether you stay in academics or not, acquired, and you make some money from it. The mistake that people make is they try and make a guess about what to do based on today. We have no idea what tomorrow will be in terms of what the hot fields will be, who's going to get bought by who, how consolidation is going to be. So my suggestion would be pick something that you really love, that you get up every day to do, and you really, really enjoy, and you're going to work really, really hard at, and you will be very successful, no matter what. The absolute number of dollars you'll make may depend on what happens at the time, but you have no control over that. But you have control over choosing something you enjoy doing.
I think there might be some cultures, though, in different specialties that are more open-minded,
Not
or
surgery.
maybe not, or maybe you can make any.
Isn't it
residency
about
program
the
open-minded.
opportunity? Isn't it about need as opposed to culture? I mean, even the most boring fields like interventional cardiology can be interesting.
Or
It's
GI.
about need. It's about where the needs are. And does anybody in this room know of a field in medicine that you've discovered so far that doesn't have needs for innovation and improvement?
You may not like it, it may not be exciting to you, but there's nothing in medicine that couldn't be done better.
Totally agreed. I think the choice of specialty should not be made based on where the more innovation lies. I think the choice of specialty should be what you love, and within that you grow. And if you have the bulb on for innovation, you will do in that field and take it further.
Yeah, you can't learn that. It's just, you either have it or you don't. Seriously, it's the state of mind, I think. It's not like one day I'm going to wake up and say, hey, I think I'm innovating from today. It's not going to happen. It just,
But it does require, I think, exposure at some
right,
stage.
exposure. Yeah, you got to see
Right.
something. It's a vibe.
Like for Brett, it was your course. For me, it was up-to-date moment. When I saw it, and it was aha moment. Oh my God, it's only a database. I could have done it, and I had the same need. I think you will find those exposure, whether you pick it and take it with you, or you just leave it. That's up to you.
Now, for you, it was exposure to illegal drugs. Is that
That's correct, yes.
Yes. So there's like all sorts of different triggers that could be it.
The
But
ideas you can get on ketamine. Like that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I think it's reassuring, that you can kind of follow your dreams or follow your passion from a medical science standpoint, and then if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, then that'll kick in when it's time. And I think it gets difficult for us as medical students because we see all of you, and as some of you pointed out, some MDs are going directly into business right after graduating. So I think there's this allure to kind of jump into that entrepreneurship world from the medical world a lot sooner. And I think there could be some danger in that. And
Don't confuse jumping into entrepreneurship out of medical school as innovation. There's no relationship there. Someone goes to medical school and finds that they would prefer to be in a business job working with business companies developing finance or funding. That's just a different career course, but that won't translate into innovation. They could even become enormously wealthy doing that and investing. That doesn't translate into innovation. It has nothing to do with it. So the move, as you're describing, to business is not related to innovation. They're completely separate issues.
Okay.
So, and I think it touches the point, which I do agree, is that we have to separate the industry. Moving to industry separate from entrepreneurship. And I think entrepreneurship is most, at least in my mind, and I think what I'm hearing here is, it's more about thinking different and taking two things to a different level in a non-traditional way. So you may learn these aspects from your regular textbooks, but you really want to do in a different way to take it. You feel a need to do something different because there's a gap. And then you are okay in learning non-traditionally way from wherever you can learn to make that thing happen. So it doesn't have to be industry per se, though that becomes a commercialization strategy in the end.
By the way, there is nothing wrong with industry.
Sure.
There is nothing wrong with industry because it's your.
Some of my best friends are in industry.
Right. No, but because it's in some ways it's A, your validator, B, it's the market that you should know about, and sometimes being in industry even for a short brief time, which is exactly how much I lasted, but gives you enough exposure and understanding of how the industry actually thinking, because ultimately if you're thinking about doing something, you will have an interaction with the industry. So it's the way of thinking, it's a discipline, it's the way how things are being executed. And by the way, a lot of great companies came as a result of those engineers leaving Johnson & Johnson's, Boston Scientifics, and Medtronics, et cetera, and starting their companies just because they saw something that they saw the need that they wanted to address.
How many people here, again, medical students? Okay. Who, raise your hand if you do not plan to do a residency.
Honestly.
Honestly. Right. Okay. Well, that's good, actually.
This is great, yeah.
Who here does not believe that their passion lies in clinical medicine in the long term? Why? You raised your hand. You're a tough guy. Go ahead. All right, you raised your hand too. Why?
It's okay,
There's no wrong answer.
My background's in engineering,
Right.
and I think ultimately that will be the way that through innovation, entrepreneurship, I can make a larger impact than just practicing medicine and impacting just the patients I see.
That's why I did it, right? Except I actually wanted to make a shitload of money. But separate from that, okay? That's why I did it, because, you know, I love patient care. I love taking care of patients. But it gave me a way to be able to affect more people, you know, over time. So the point I was trying to make is that everybody has their own reason for doing it. You just have to find what that reason is for you, and don't do something because you think you're supposed to do something. Do it because you want to do it, you know, and you're really driven to do that. So, by the way, you'll never succeed, but I mean, it's okay. It's a number.
So we've seen here at Sinai that there's, you know, all these new courses and these new pathways, the scholar pathway, where you can then get a training within the DTE with the DET program. Do you think that there's potential in introducing business concepts in medical school that you might be distracting medical students from the essential basics that you have to learn before, you know, to be an effective resident later on and then physician?
Every time I hear this question about, you know, this should be in medical school and that should be in medical school, there's only 24 hours a day, and I'm always hearing, you know, why don't they teach enough of this? Why don't they teach enough of that? You can't fit it all in. I think medical school is about about learning the basics of medicine, the basics of taking care of patients, and even, you know, and on into internship and residency. I think it belongs later. I don't think it belongs in medical, certainly as an elective. I mean, for those who are interested, maybe at the end of medical school, but in the core, if you put business, you're taking out, you know, ethics. You're taking out something else that's really important.
Well, if you're going into business, it's good you take out ethics.
Right. Yes. Fair enough.
So I semi agree with that. You know, I think there's first and second year medical school and there's third and fourth year medical school. By fourth year, you start thinking of residencies. You're already kind of committed, I think. And I do think there should be opportunities for exposure. So people can reach out and do electives, because if there's no opportunities, then you may not be exposed to it, and you may still do it, but at a later stage, and it may not jive that well, or may not be that transformational. So, but first and second, if it's a very heavy course, you don't want to distract them at the same time. Now, there are flipped medical schools now, like Cleveland Clinic, and I think there's one more, where from the first year itself, people go to clinics, right? So there's no first year, the first time the person comes. Mount Sinai, okay, Mount Sinai too, I'm sorry. So there you're getting exposed, and there the maturity level may be different. And I think you don't want to get it too early, but when the maturity level is right, they're seeing the clinical thing, they see some needs, I think, and they want to get exposure, that opportunity should be there.
But, there's two ways to do it. There is either giving people exposure sometime in medical school, or having them come in with exposure. And I personally, I think that coming in with exposure has some advantage to it. that
And when
you've
you're
done
part of
something.
an extraordinary class like Sinai gets, then a lot of them have exposure,
Right,
right?
so you said people that did
Yeah,
research,
most
masters,
selected.
this. You never know, maybe there's somebody who did like 3 years of imaging at the general. Oh, that was you, right? Done. So, but really, honestly, it's, I don't think you should not get the exposure. It's just a question of how it fits into
Yeah, I
the
mean, I
process.
think that the Sinai is, to a certain extent, trying something new. And, a lot of my classmates, when they've heard about the new McKinsey program or the new Scholar program, there is a hesitancy that, hey, like, we're a medical school first and foremost. So while all this, innovation entrepreneurship is incredibly interesting to myself and probably to a lot of you, there is a pause that I have, hey, like, I probably need to be a really great physician first before, I get too deep into these other skill sets that I would love to develop someday.
Let me just
Maybe
be
they're
a
not
devil.
separated, they're the
yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, it's the same
They
thing.
could be the same thing, sure.
Yeah, and let me be a devil advocate. When, again, speaking, not trying to compare two things, Mount Sinai and Stanford, but we looked at, I lived in California for several years, and we were looking at the, again, early stage companies, really interesting companies. And so there was not a single company where the students or professors of Stanford were not involved, one way or the other. So even if they were students, they were doing something for that company, just being involved with a company that also would give you a tremendous amount of experience and exposure, again, to understand whatever, what are you doing. So there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's all then, ultimately probably comes down to the to ecosystem and whatever. Mount Sinai, for example, has those capabilities and has those, that activity on campus, right?
And I think we probably may differentiate exposure with dedicated classwork.
Yeah.
So I think the burden, you don't want to burden too much, but you want to provide exposure. It doesn't take too long exposure for a person who's attuned to grasp that and move on, and it's a great path. I don't know what you think.
I don't think you need any exposure. Either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. I mean, all this coursework is you know what you're going to do, you know what you're interested in, and you're either going to find someone to mentor you and give you direction on how to get to the next stage, or you're probably not fit and interested in doing this, and you'll find something else for your path.
All right, question in the back?
Yeah, I wanted to ask all of you, how do you recommend that medical students with ideas that they develop during medical school negotiate with their respective IP administrators at their institutions?
That would have been a great question for the funding outside the NIH box
Well,
workshop.
you first,
Oh, yeah, but-
depending on the institution, you have to determine what your responsibility is in whatever position you are to either have to assign or not assign your intellectual property to the institution. Each one is different. For example, at Sinai, I don't believe students have the requirement to assign. However, if you are in a lab where that you're getting paid a stipend from a lab, and that lab has a responsibility because they're funded by a company to assign to that company, then you inherit that requirement to assign. So it all depends on who you are and what your position is, and, you know, there's not a generic thing. But once you determine that you have a responsibility to assign or not, you know, then there's good and bad about it, right? You know, if you have a responsibility to assign and you disclose it, and they choose not to, you know, file intellectual property on it, then it's assigned back to you. And now you have clear title. And if they keep it, then you get to have them pay for the prosecution. So, you know, there's pluses and minuses.
Right,
Did
and
that
these-
answer your question? Or?
Yeah, in general, have all of you disclosed and tried to,
If you hide it, it's called inequitable conduct, and they can invalidate your patent.
So for us, because I'm a Sinai employee, the first thing is if I get an idea which I think is worthwhile, the first thing I do is there's an IDF, Invention Disclosure Form. If you go to the MSIP, Innovation Partners, Mount Sinai, you can always call them. Chris Friends is our point of contact. But they actually have an invention disclosure form, web form. Just fill it up. And even if you don't know it's yours, it's okay to disclose. And then you say, hey, am I obligated to disclose, or is it a value or not? You can always have that conversation. Some ideas may not be patentable. For most of the apps which I build are not patentable. So it's mostly about copyright, trademark, and the first to use, and kind of market penetration for us. So that's the, so not everything that is patentable, so just have that in mind. There are other kind of protections per se. But MSIP, Innovation Partners, is the go-to. They also have legal people. The whole legal team reports to them.
did all of you manage to sell your own products or inventions or whatever back to your own institution? I mean, I'm sure you want naturally the people around you to have access to whatever you're creating, right? So how did you negotiate that? Because, like, say the institution takes an interest in your IP, right? They would then have some control over, your ability to market it internally or whatever. So, did you experience any problems with that, or how did you take a product that you developed, say, here at Mount Sinai, and then got other people at Mount Sinai to use it sustainably?
It's 5 to, well, depending on the device, it's, 2 to 8, 10 years between that, right? Your friends will be long gone by the time you try and sell back to them.
I
You know?
guess, I was talking more about software, so it's
Ah.
the device.
I'll leave it to you guys.
No.
Yeah.
So we make rapid turnaround software within 3 months. We have 7 apps right now. We actually have no problems at all. In fact, as part of my role in Office of Technology Innovation Engagement, if people like our product, we just support them. From our side, the more people use it, the more they validate, the more they help in the version 2. And then we fold it back to IDF version 2, and then we license it out. So there's no restriction. If you have invention disclosure form, internally, if anyone wants to use it, you're totally fine. And there is no negotiation in percentage IP which Sinai would get versus you. It's all written down.
But so when you say license, are you saying, do you have IP you're licensing for the app, or are you selling the code for the app?
So there is a IP many times in the app, because the way you may deal some algorithms, and the way you do IP can also be trademark or copyright, right? So there may be some brand or some mockups you may do.
Right.
But so the first thing which I do as a best practice, and probably I think everyone here will recommend, is to protect your IP. Because I'll be making a presentation in my grand rounds or somewhere, I want to first go to Mount Sinai Innovation Partners and say, this is what we had thought and this is what I want to work on. So if I later on do a presentation and someone sees it and builds off it, I have at least reported to Mount Sinai Innovation Partners. And actually I have been burned on that in my prior institution. So that's the first thing which I do as soon as, it's not just the idea that is there, but idea what you want to work and you think you want to take it further. Protect it through invention disclosure form, that's internal protection. And then you can share the idea in a reasonable way. But internally, you can share with anyone. There's no IP issue sharing internally. Is that what your experience have been? Or?
Well, I mean, to be honest, with specifically technology component with IT, there's not much you can protect. I mean, and your advantage in doing something is purely an executional advantage or the ways to get to the market. I mean, there's not much you can protect on technology side because unless it's a Google algorithm that or something, it's very unusual that you see a lot of protection. You see any protection? I mean, I would say that worth something for that company. In IT side, on
So why
IT
do-
side.
so why do you
For
guys
medtech,
invest in
medical
IT?
devices, diagnostical different.
So why do people invest in your IT ideas
So,
if they're not protectable?
I think
so
first to
speak?
market is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So for example, we have apps which integrate with EHR, and we are the only two organizations in the country which can do that. So I think, so that for someone to actually build off it, it will take at least a year. So I think the first mover's advantage is the most important. The other thing is if you can get a brand name very fast, like domain names reserved and that kind of a stuff, and you do a trial very fast, then people start associating that kind of a app and that kind of functionality with you. And I totally agree. So software, you can do copyright, you can do. The other thing which we do actually is you do copyright and you do trademark, and that's a hindrance for other person just to take your slides and take it. Right, so there's a law that you can actually make everything what you have seen completely in your own lab, and no one can prevent it. That's totally legal. But what you do is many people who tend to copy, suppose, the same screenshot or something like that. If you show that you have a copyright and you have a trademark or something of that, it's just a hindrance you are creating for the other person. Whether that hindrance is just psychological hindrance or it's actually a full legal hindrance, which is tougher in software, but it's even that psychological barrier you create in them that you are protecting your IP is enough for sometimes to say, hey, I don't want to get into that turf. Let me think of other idea.
Well, I mean, two comments. One, we never invested in apps. We actually invested in technology that improves specific process, makes it better, or whatnot. For example, one of the companies improves significantly, makes clinical trial processes incredible. It's analytics, visualization, and collaboration platform. It's an amazing company. And so when we invested in the in company, even though they later on they filed a couple of patents later on the algorithm and et cetera, but this is not really what makes them so good. It's their unique approach to this specific angle, a specific industry, and how they're doing, what makes them so good, and that's the reason why we invested. So. Apps are a slightly different story, and that's why we don't invest in apps. We invest in the other company also, which is it's a process improvement, and if wherever it's a process improvement or you're solving specific care delivery problem, it's the way you do it. It's execution more than anything. So the barriers to entry are your execution rather than anything else.
I agree. So there are 50,000 apps, health apps
Yeah.
in the market. Right, so the value, if you really want to get into apps, is you have to create value in terms of patient outcomes or efficiency gains and measure it, and then that distinguishes you.
That was a really great question, Ted. Thanks for asking that. Are there any other questions at all? We're about to wrap up. We've been about an hour in. Thank everyone for their patience. Any more questions? Yep.
In entrepreneurship and innovation, you ever stack like, you ever see those lessons learned?
Can you repeat that again? Or just go up to the microphone? Thanks.
In entrepreneurship and innovation, failure is a fact of life. Is there any failures you can tell us about or any lessons you learned from them?
Just keep,
I'm just not like.
don't, if you truly believe in it, don't quit. But you have to bend to reality. If there's objective reason why your thing's not going to work, move on to the next. But it's, whatever, if you decide on a certain career path and you're really passionate about it, then keep going along that career path. You'll have ups, you'll have downs, but you'll enjoy yourself, you'll make a good living, and you'll be able to really make a difference. So I would, that's not a very satisfying answer, but.
I would say learn from competitors. It initially seems, oh my God, that's a competitor. I have this, for example, I have made this app, there's another app. But if you really start looking, there's engagement model that's different, the way their business model is different. So you turn yourself off by learning all those cool things which your competitors might be doing, just because you think, oh, they're a competitor. And there's a very good saying that says the biggest drawback of a startup company, now I'm talking about industry, oh my God, the biggest drawback of a startup company is not another competitor in space. It's your own operational throughput and the value you create. So I would say learn from it, the whole ecosystem and everyone around you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you to our panelists.